What if the biggest thing sabotaging your leadership isn't your strategy, but it's your sentence structure? That's right. I'm talking about the way we speak to ourselves, to our teams, to the boardroom. Listen, it really does shape how we're heard, how we're trusted, and how we lead. And listen, in this episode entitled Stop Allowing Your Language to Undermine Your Impact, guess what? We're talking about this because it's time for you to take the mic back from self doubt, passive phrasing, and leadership shrinkage. Are you ready? I sure am. So let's dig in. All right, welcome back to the Transformation Station Leadership Podcast. This is our best in class series where bold leaders learn to rise with resilience, lead with integrity, and influence with intention. And in today's episode, we're getting deep, deep, deep. Why? Because the words we choose and even the words that we let slip by, our language leaves clues about how confidently or how cautiously we lead. Now, today, I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome our guest, Julie Holunga. Now, Julie is a leadership speaker and trainer helping leaders develop communication skills that they were never taught in school. She has partnered with over 8,000 professionals and teams to stop being lazy leaders by developing trust, communicating more effectively, and engaging in constructive conflict. Let's welcome Julie to the Best in Class series. Julie, welcome. We're so glad that you're here with us today.
Thank you, Adrienne. You should come walk around with me all the time with that kind of intro.
I love it. So listen, I really am excited about the conversation that we're having today because to me, this is really a real and relevant topic that many times as leaders, we don't really talk about, yet it really truly is impactful. It can make or break a leader's career. So here's what I've noticed over the years, Julie, that language is leadership in action.
Yes.
I said it earlier, right, in the intro, that the way we speak to ourselves, the way we speak to our teams, the way we speak to the other stakeholders around us, it really does influence how others perceive our credibility, our confidence, and vision. As we start this conversation, I think about myself. You know, I've been in leadership for over 3 decades now, and I honestly can recall times where in my mind, I had what I call stinking thinking, right? I was feeling doubt. I was feeling a sense of insecurity. And what happened? Out of my mouth flowed the insecurity that others were not even thinking. But once I said it, it began to plant seeds of doubt about my competence, seeds of doubt about whether they could trust me or not. So, this conversation again is really important. And those of you who are listening and watching, I want to invite you to go ahead right now and share this episode with one other leader that you know. So, Julie, as we get started here, I really want to ask you this question. Okay, here it goes. From your experience, what are some common phrases or habits in language that subtly weaken a leader's authority or message without them even realizing it?
Yes. Well, there are a number of words, and we could spend our whole time together, me sharing all these different words or phrases that undermine our ability to influence and have an impact on whoever our audience may be. But there are a couple that I'll share with you that if I could just erase these words from people's language, that it would really have a huge impact on our ability to lead. The first thing that I would say is to stop apologizing for things that it wasn't your mistake. It's not a scenario where you need to be apologizing for. So just get rid of that. So I hear it all the time. I hear it professionally. I hear it from my Pilates instructor. I hear it, at the supermarket, where people apologize unnecessarily. And what happens when you apologize for something that's not yours to apologize, you start taking on the onus of someone else's mistake. So for instance, this is the example I love to give because it's pretty simple. My Pilates instructor, who's fantastic, a friend of I started doing private Pilates classes with her. But what would happen is that we'd be chatting along and the instructor would be telling us, okay, this is what we're going to do next. But my friend Liz and I would be chatting away and would miss about half of what was being said. So then we would say, oh, are we supposed to do this or this? And the instructor would immediately, the first word out of her mouth would be to apologize. And we would say, no. We were the ones chatting away. Don't take on our mistake, essentially some rudeness of chatting away and then half listening to what she was saying. In the workplace, this shows up. For instance, if you are working on, I had a client share with me that she was pulling together materials for their board meeting. And there was always one individual who every quarter missed the deadline of getting the materials to her. And she had done everything. She had talked to his assistant. She had talked to someone junior on his team. She had tried all these different reminders and outreach, email, text, showing up at his office, tried everything under the sun for him to get the materials to her on time. And at a certain point, the CEO said, you know what? You stop chasing him. If he can't get his materials to you on time after all that you've done and all the people trying to work with him, that's it. Step away. So she did. He missed the deadlines. His materials, as the CFO, kind of important for the board meeting, did not make it into the pre-meeting materials because he could not get it to her. So she then, he called her and he said, could you come to my office? She went and he lost his mind. He was absolutely livid. And she said to him, first words out of her mouth, I'm so sorry. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing was he then paused, which I give him a lot of credit for. And he turned it around and said, why are you apologizing? You did nothing wrong. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm annoyed because you sent the materials to the board, but I know that that's not your timeline. I know that's theirs. That's the CEO's. So it did, in one sense, was helpful because it shocked him into reality, but that's not the norm. Okay. Most people would have said, yeah, it is your fault and you shouldn't have done this and you shouldn't have sent that without me. So taking on the onus of his wrongdoing didn't help her. And in fact, what ended up happening, even though that moment there was some positive that came out of it and he had a realization, he didn't change his behaviors. And he lost trust in her because she took on that onus of something that wasn't hers to own. Now, he can't verbalize that. I've talked to him and tried to uncover what's going on for him, why he can't do that. But apologizing when it's not yours to own. Now, I'm married to a Canadian. They love to say pardon. They love to apologize. They're so kind. But even so, I will say to them, it's not about apologizing that's going on for you. It's really that you want to demonstrate some empathy. And so that's what we've worked on. And instead of, like with that client, I told you about the board packet, what she has rephrased that, instead of saying, apologizing or saying, I'm sorry, she now says, thank you for your patience. So replace I'm sorry with thank you. Now, the exception is if you're the one who's late, if you're the one who made a mistake, yeah, obviously apologize. I see this one all the time that I always recommend to people. If you have been traveling, let's say, and you didn't get back to a client or a stakeholder, key stakeholder, as quickly as you would like, instead of saying apologies for my slow reply, say thank you for your patience with my delayed response. So just have that thought in your mind. How can I change it from I'm sorry to thank you.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. It really changes the whole
Mhm.
climate, perspective,
Yes.
temperature of the
Yes.
conversation.
Exactly.
It does. Wow. I
Yeah.
love
And
that.
the other thing it changes, Adrienne, that have just been researching this in the last few months that is really impactful is it maintains your status. And I'm not talking about, 1K on United status, airline status or hotel status, but really maintaining that peer-to-peer relationship. Or if, in this example with my client working with the CFO, obviously he was more senior to her, but she doesn't need to put herself really way down the ladder from him. She's not his peer. She knew that, but she needs to maintain that status in order to keep his trust and even develop that trust so that he'll come to her with challenges. He'll come to her with, I want to know your perspective. But because she put herself in that one down position, didn't maintain her status, he doesn't see her as a trusted.
Cool.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
really think about that status as how do I maintain this? How do I not come across as desperate? Like if you're in a sales position or you're trying to influence someone to give you additional budget, keep that status as a trusted advisor, as a trusted peer, whatever that the situation is. But don't put yourself in that one down position and then you lose that status.
No, I love this right here. And those of you who are listening and watching, here in Best of Class series, we always want to stop and take those moments where we can reflect. This is a great place to stop and pause, right? Maybe apologizing unnecessarily is not necessarily that habit that trips you up. But I want you to think, because Julie's going to continue sharing with us, I want you to think about the subtle language habits that you use that will undermine your leadership from time to time. Julie, we have a quote here, a leadership quote that says, "Your words tell the world how to treat your leadership." Your words tell the world how to treat your leadership. I heard another quote that said, "When I meet you, you teach me how to treat you." Many times we don't think about the messaging that we put out, right? We tend to blame other people. They don't like me, they don't this, they don't respect me, right? And there's two sides to every story. Everybody has to be held accountable for their own actions. And with that, sometimes we really need to stop and do an assessment about what is the messaging that we're putting out through our words, through our actions, or just simply how we show up.
That's right. We're teaching others how to treat us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
So as you continue sharing, right, and if you have additional words, subtle words, definitely please share them. I also want to ask you another question because this is coming to my mind, right? Why are difficult conversations hard for some and not hard for others? What have you found? Why are difficult conversations hard for some and not hard for others?
Well, to state the obvious, we've never been taught how to have these hard conversations. So we go into these situations steeling ourselves, expecting the worst. And that comes from the limbic part of our brain, which is the most primitive part of our brain that is essentially protecting us from saber-toothed tigers. Although we all have probably worked with difficult people at some point in our career, they're not saber-toothed tiger. We don't have to fear for our life. But what I see is that people who take action and have that hard conversation, it becomes easier and easier and easier because they get into the habit of not avoiding that hard conversation. And then it becomes easier. By doing it, they build resilience. Like anything that we're doing, it's building that muscle of this is how I have to have a hard conversation, and I have to nudge, maybe force myself to do it. So Daniel Pink has written a book called Regret, where he interviewed 23,000 people around the globe about their regrets. And what he discovered was that one of the groups that he qualified all these regrets into 4 different buckets. And one of those buckets is the conversation that wasn't had, the adventure that wasn't taken, the relationship that wasn't pursued. And what he found out was that when people took that step and took that adventure, had that hard conversation, went after that relationship they want to have, the reaction was always the same. Oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And so when I teach people about how to have conversations, I remind them of that. It's actually harder, takes up more of your time. It becomes more of a distraction for you, for your team, for that stakeholder. By not having it, by avoiding that hard conversation, you're making things so much worse. Mm-hmm. And instead, if you say, okay, I'm going to have this conversation, it's not going to be easy, but when I have this conversation, it's going to save me time. It's going to save me stress. It's going to reduce the amount of distraction because I've had the conversation. I've set expectations. We've come to an alignment of this is what's going to happen instead. And to understand why conversations are hard, because there are 3 things that are happening. One, that there is at least one person, part of the conversation, doesn't know it's happening, right? Like I have in my mind, I need to go talk to Adrienne because she's not performing as I need her to perform. I know that the conversation is going to happen. You don't. So there's that, right? There tends to be strong emotions playing on both sides and a variety of emotions. Maybe they're same, maybe they're not. And thirdly, we have opposing opinions. I may come to you and say, Adrienne, you got to step it up. I need you to produce a much higher quality written communication, let's say. And in your mind, you're thinking to yourself, are you kidding me? I just worked my butt off on that. I stayed till midnight to finish that out. I got other people's perspective. What more could I do? So that difference of opinion tends to be a big piece of what makes it a hard conversation.
Wow. This is so rich. And again, you bring us right directly to a moment of clarity and reflection. Mm-hmm. You know, to my leaders who are listening, I'm going to invite you right now again to stop and think. Difficult conversations. Why are they difficult for you? Mm-hmm. Why are they difficult for you? Why are some conversations more difficult for you to begin to engage in and others you're able to just move through seamlessly? You know, Julie, they say that sometimes conversations are difficult for us because we fear, and you said a word, reject. We fear rejection, right? And leaders, I mean, we are prone to this all the time, right? We want to be that quote unquote winning leader who you walk in the door and everybody respects and they're cheering you on and yes, speak, and everybody listens and they just go forward and do. And sometimes we don't want to speak to individuals because we fear if I say this to Julie, she's going to disconnect.
Yep.
She's going to shut that door that I've been working so hard to finally get open, or she's just going to reject. She's not even going to act like I said anything to her. She's going to say, or she'll say, okay, and she'll walk away and not do it, right? Sometimes, like you mentioned earlier, that power dynamic.
Yes.
Sometimes we don't want to have that difficult conversation because maybe the person's senior to us, right? Yeah. And they're in an authority position, and we feel like I can't say anything to them because they're more senior to me, they have more respect, they have more position, they have these type of things, right? Or sometimes we don't have difficult conversations because of fear of retaliation.
Yep.
If I say something, then they're going to move from my position. If I say something, then X, Y, and Z will happen, right?
Yep.
Sometimes people don't say anything because of their own emotional immaturity or their own struggle with regulating their emotions. You know, one of the things that I learned from a mentor and a coach over the years, they have invited me as I have progressed in my career and become more senior to operate off of fact before I operate off of feeling.
Yes.
And people say to me all the time, are you reacting or are you responding? Ooh.
Right.
Are you
Exactly.
reacting? Are you responding? Reaction is based off of feeling. It's how I
Yep.
feel right now and what I feel like I have to say, what I feel needs to happen, right? Responding, I process
Mm-hmm.
what's happening, what was said to me. I process what needs to happen, and then I respond. I think, and I just
Yes.
operate off of
Right.
feeling.
Right. And having that emotional reaction is normal. It's real. We're human beings, but noticing that, to your point of like, take a moment to reflect. What I always ask people to say is look at the people, the circumstances, and the situations. Which are the easier people to have a hard conversation, circumstances, situation, have a hard conversation with? Which ones are harder? A lot of
Mm.
times it is what you're saying, that person who is more senior to you, or
Mhm.
perhaps it's someone who's closed off. And anytime you've given them even an ounce of feedback, they shut down, right? And then that conflict, that fear of conflict, that fear of dislike, that fear of discomfort comes into play. I literally had a kind of a middle manager leader say to me last week as we were having this conversation about difficult conversations. He said, if I have to take 20 minutes to go have this conversation, that's 20 minutes I'm not going to hang out with my kid.
Mm.
And I said, absolutely, I hear you. And
And
that 20 minutes of having that uncomfortable conversation is going to save you hours down the line that you're going to play with your kid.
Yes. Yes.
And I said to him, you said 20 minutes. And he said, yeah, that's what it would take. And I said, okay, 20 minutes. 20 minutes. That's going to save you tenfold.
Yes.
Right? So if you can take a moment to reflect, to ask yourself, what conversations am I avoiding right now? Even one. What is that one conversation you're avoiding that you
Yes.
don't want to have because it's uncomfortable?
Yes. 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 So those of us who are listening and watching, Julie has asked us a question, right? She said, take a moment right now. And I want to invite you to take a moment and to really reflect. And Julie, as you've been talking, my mind started shifting towards, well, why is it then that others can have these conversations a little bit more easily? And I began to think again about my journey and how there were some conversations I absolutely stayed away from when I was a brand leader that now, because tested and tried, right? Tested, tried,
Right.
true, been through the fire,
Yeah.
right? There are some things that I've been able to develop over the years. And so sometimes as we have these situations and occurrences, we can't get we can't get stuck and just focusing
Yeah.
on the situation. We have to grow with it and allow it to mature us so that we can, one, know our values, understand what our boundaries are, right? If
Mm-hmm.
you know what your boundaries are, then that gives you even more of an impetus to understand how to communicate, what language, right? I think about when I was going to get married, and my husband and I were in marriage counseling, premarital counseling, and our premarital counselor said, listen, it goes back to, I need you to know who you are. Because when you know who you are, then you can communicate to your partner what you need. You can communicate what you like. But if you don't know these things, then your spouse is going to continue to jump through hoops trying to figure out, does she like blue? Does she like red? Does she like flowers? Does she like cake? Like, there should be things that you should be able to say, to communicate for yourself. And leaders, it's the same thing. The people that work for you, they need clarity in knowing that who you are on Monday morning is who you're going to be on Tuesday morning. Not that they have to say, okay, well, who's he going to be today? Is he going to walk in being angry and upset in the morning? Is he going to be calm in the afternoon? Like that keeps your workplace from having psychological safety.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And that's another reason why some people are able to have these conversations a little more easily.
Yeah.
Because they have built within their workplace a framework, a culture where honesty and directness is normal. It's
Yes.
normal.
Yes.
So no one
Absolutely.
has to be afraid of
That's right.
having a difficult, calm conversation.
Yep. I completely agree. And you know what's interesting? You bring up the directness piece. And this is something that I've been focusing on for the last 6 or 8 months, because there is this misconception of when we are direct, that we are aggressive, that we are too assertive, and many other descriptions that maybe aren't as nice. And instead, if we can look at directness as a way to be heard and a way to communicate, this is exactly what I need from you. Now, you may have noticed that I changed my tone a little bit. I changed the pace of my voice. So directness doesn't mean mean. It doesn't mean difficult.
Yes.
Instead, if you think of directness as clarity, speak with clarity, but don't fluff it up, but say exactly, this is what I need, and pay attention to your tone.
Yes.
And you may slow your pace just a hair, just a tiny bit, not to be demeaning or to put someone down, but instead it should be so minute that consciously your audience doesn't notice it. But instead they feel a calmness. And what I always say, so Adam Grant, who's the professor at Wharton, he talks about being direct in your delivery and kind in your messaging. So if you can think about kindness and direct can coexist, that will really help when you're having that hard conversation. I want to be direct and I want to be kind. And if you can find your way of doing that, it will go so far, because you're not demeaning someone else. You're not being so aggressive that they're so focused on the method of the delivery that they don't hear the message.
Mercy. Kind and direct can coexist. That's a game changer right there.
Yes.
That's a game changer, And when you were talking, I love the way that you showed the example by literally doing it, by changing your pace, by changing your tone of voice, right? When we are having direct conversations, many times the individual that is listening to us, they're on edge because they're waiting for the hammer to drop, and they're trying to figure out, how do I respond and defend myself, protect myself at the same time? But when we pull back, by pulling back from being aggressive and nasty and mean to calm and using words that are direct and clear, the person can back up and really hear what we're saying, not just hear to react to what we're saying.
Exactly. Like truly listen. And because that is the natural response to feedback. We become defensive. And when we feel that we need to defend our decision or our actions or our behaviors, we don't hear what's being said, because we are mentally drafting what we're going to say next.
Yes.
That's not deep listening. That's not listening for that golden nugget. Like if we're receiving feedback, let's say, of something we didn't do as well, or a behavior or action that didn't go well, we're so focused on, oh, they're wrong. Or who is Adrienne to tell me she wasn't there? Or that's not who I am. I'm always responsive. What are you talking about? I can't hear what's being said, truly what's being said. So I'm not going to change. And what I always hear from people is they get frustrated. I'm not being promoted. I didn't get a raise. I'm not being put on the exciting engagements, because you don't hear feedback. We all need feedback to grow. And Bill Gates, he's almost 70, and he said, I need to be surrounded by people who will give me feedback, because that's the only way I can improve. So at 70 years old, he's done really well for himself. I think we can all agree, our world has changed because of him in so many ways.
Yes.
That if he still wants feedback at 70 years old, we should all be striving for that, and to have the ability to hear it, even if it's a little golden nugget that's going to help us show up better, perform better, be a better
Yes.
leader to our teams, to our key stakeholders, to our community. That's what matters. That's when, when you're on your deathbed, you're not thinking about how many reports or how many sales you made, but it's the impact.
Yes.
The transformation that you have with your audience, whoever that might be, your
Yes.
teams, your families, your communities. That's what matters. And you cannot do that if you don't receive feedback, if you don't have the hard conversation.
Mercy. This is deep. This is deep. And again, to our Best in Class series community, this is another place for you to stop and do some reflection, right? There's a quote that we came up with that says, difficult conversations aren't a sign of dysfunction. They're a doorway to deeper trust.
Yes.
And my leaders, I want to invite you to stop and think about what are the ways that you can build deeper trust? How can you use the difficult conversations that you have to have from time to time? And one thing, I want to stick a pin in that just for one moment. As you were talking, I was thinking to myself that it's so important that as leaders that we don't manipulate, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't use difficult conversations for manipulation.
Yeah.
But we use it for deeper trust, for greater clarity, for greater alignment with our team. And so that brings me then to this question that I really would like to ask you. How does the way we speak to ourselves and to others, how does that shape our influence as leaders?
Yes, absolutely. So when you think, let's start with the inner dialogue. You mentioned when you started in your career that you had those negative thoughts and they came out. We all have had them. I remember in my first career working, my first job working at Harvard University, we would have these all team meetings and, it'd be, 60 people or so. And the top leaders would sit around the table and then their direct reports would join them. But then, the low women on the totem pole and men would sit around the periphery of the room. And what would happen? None of us around the periphery room were part of the conversation. And we would just sit back. Now, month 1, maybe month 3, there's not much to contribute. But I worked for a couple of unbelievable bosses in those first few years of my career. And after about a year, my boss was very senior on this team. And he said, no, what are you doing back there? Get up here. And I remember in the moment, I remember that visceral reaction of like, I have nothing to say. And all the thoughts in my head, I have nothing to add. What do they want to hear? No one's going to listen to me. But he had invited me and he wanted me there. And he told me afterwards, this is what I need you to share in these meetings, because they were monthly. So the first one, I said nothing, but I was physically there. So that was a step. But then the second time, ahead of time, and this is what great leaders do. Maybe it was 15 minutes before the meeting was starting. He said, Julie, get in here. He called me into his office and he said, you're speaking today. What do you want to share? What do people need to hear? You're at the front lines. You're talking to our alumni. What are the themes you're hearing? You're going to share that today. And over time, he didn't need to keep doing that. Right? He would just, okay, you're as he was walking past my cube, going to the meeting, Julie, let's go. You're going to speak today, right? And sometimes it made sense that I would, but not always. But it wasn't that like just speak to be spoken, but it did require me to change that voice in my head. And I would say to myself, Bill wants me here. Bill wants me to share. Bill hired me because he wants me to share at this meeting. So that's the first. You got to get those thoughts, because the mirror neurons in our brain will reflect that. Even if we don't say, I have nothing to add, or there's nothing I can contribute to this conversation, there is something through the mirror neurons that comes out. And people don't necessarily know exactly what it is, but they might say, yeah, I like Adrienne. I'm just not sure she's the right person for this project. I'm just not sure we want her on this team. That's the mirror neurons working on your behalf. Not really. And then thinking about it externally. When you say, if you are in a meeting where you are trying to influence someone, again, use that example. Let's use the example of trying to get additional budget. If you go into that meeting saying, I think that with more budget, I could probably do this. I don't know. I mean, you guys know better than I do. What do you think? You have put yourself 10 rungs below. You're not influencing anyone. That whole sentence is planting seeds of doubt. If you flip it and you say, given my research, given my experience, I know that adding an additional headcount or increasing my budget will allow us to do these 3 things. And then to ask a question. So if they are senior to you, if they're more experienced, if they know the project better than you do, ask them a question. Because if they're going to say no, they'll say no regardless. Don't put yourself in that one down position. So you might say, here's my recommendation, these 3 things with additional budget. How does that sit with you? What haven't I thought of? What am I missing? And start the conversation with them. Again, you're maintaining that status.
Yes. Yes.
This is an equal conversation. Yes, maybe they have the power to give you the budget or not. But if they're not going to, they're not going to. Don't give them the runway to immediately start with no.
This is powerful. So even though you shared a little bit, and even if you have to repeat something of what you said before, but I think it's really important for us to pause right here. And if you could just share with us, what is some additional examples of strong language that we can add to our vocabulary? Let's empower our leaders right now, right? Because I know some of them are sitting there thinking, okay, this is good. How do I do this? So what's some strong language that we can add to our vocabulary?
Yeah. So there are a couple of things that I think about. We talk about what to take away. So you can replace it with, I am confident. For instance, I'm confident we will find a plan that meets both our needs. Or I'm convinced, given my experience, this is the path to take. Or some other examples are, instead of saying, I guess this is a good way for me to build my practice, to say, I plan to build my practice by tapping into my existing relationships. So it's not, I believe I can build my practice, but it's really this, it's action oriented. It's, instead of being conditional, it's being declarative. Declarative language like I plan, I recommend, I suggest. Those kinds of words will help. Saying, unquestionably, this solution is going to solve our problem. That's declarative. Now, I will tell you, Adrienne, that I hear pushback from leaders. They say, if I talk like that, it's going to come back to bite me. It's too assertive, right? It's going to come back. They're not going to like it. Well, anytime any of us change as human beings, someone's going to push back. So just assume that's going to happen. And instead, notice, you can say, I know this is exactly what we need to do. That probably is going to get some pushback. But if you say, given my experience, I know that we can do this. You're paying attention to your tone and the pace, the not necessarily just the words that we use, which is 45% of our communication, but thinking about our body language and our tone, because that's what makes up that other 55%. Yes. And from my experience, my research, what I know is that tone is really the difference maker.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I've noticed in my own leadership, even I'll say it from two different aspects, right? So I've noticed if I am engaging with someone who's senior to me and they use a certain tone of voice, it either makes me, like we were talking earlier, get defensive and
Uh-huh.
guarded and like, or it causes me to stand up a little
Mhm.
bit taller, be able to
Mhm.
breathe, and feel like I have space to
Yes.
be, to
Yes.
operate, to move forward, right? And so it does make a difference. Our tone and our choice of words can regulate the room or it can raise tension.
That's
So,
right.
leaders that are listening right now, I want you to think, are you regulating,
Mhm.
causing everything to be on this even platform, have the clarity that is needed? Or are you raising the tension by
Mhm.
causing those who you are leading your team to be guarded and defensive because of the choice of words? And words are powerful. I tell you,
Yes.
words cut you and
Yep.
words can kill you.
Yes.
And so we want to be intentional with our words, right? So Julie, I'm going to ask you this final question. This final question, right? Because I know that right now there are leaders, not even one, there are leaders that are listening. They are feeling empowered by what you're saying. They are realizing that there are some ways in which they need to shift, adjust in their leadership and in the language that they use, right? And they're thinking right now, where do I begin in the
Mhm.
process of changing my communication
Yep.
without sounding fake or forced, right? Like tomorrow they want to go to work and they want to change their vocabulary, but they don't want to do it in a way where people are like, who is this person?
You're
How,
right.
you know? So
Right.
what encouragement do you have for our leaders who are listening that are saying, okay, I hear you, I got it, but how do I begin the process of changing my communication in a way that's not fake or forced?
Right. So the first piece is to be aware. Notice those circumstances, those situations, those individuals where you find yourself using more weak language. So that first is just notice it, right? It's that reflection piece. And then to take a moment and to say to yourself, I'm going to stop using this word. I'm going to stop saying, I think this is the way to go. And what am I going to replace I think with? So if you say, I don't want to use I think anymore, I don't want to use I believe anymore, replace it with something powerful, that language of leadership. So it may be, I'm convinced, or I know. A lot of people tell me that feels really, I don't know if I'm convinced. I still have a little bit of doubt. Okay, then say, I know. That's a great place. So replace the weak with the strong, and then practice it. Notice where it's showing up and practice it in that moment. And if you find yourself, especially in spoken, using I think, say, and it comes out of your mouth, say, hold on a second, let me rephrase that. So in writing, right, or typing away at an email or texting, you can delete. So do the same with your spoken and say to yourself, hold on a second, let me rephrase that. I know that taking this tactic will work.
Mm.
And
So,
practice one at a time. Oh,
yes, one
yeah.
at a
Don't,
time.
don't take on too much. Practice one at a time. Maybe the next one you practice is
Mhm.
replacing I'm sorry with thank you.
Mm. Mhm. Mhm. I love that, right? Because you don't want to overwhelm yourself and
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to operate in a way that's fake or phony. So if you just take one
Exactly.
step, one bite,
Mm-hmm.
one practice at a time, then that gives you an opportunity to move forward in a way that will be sustainable, right? So
Exactly. And make it stick. Take that one word for
mm,
3 weeks and just
mhm,
focus on that one word. And in 3 weeks, it will stick.
mm.
Then
So
choose
take
the next one. Yeah, take your
yes,
time. This is not overnight.
yes.
Sorry, not sorry.
Nay, I love that. I love that, right? The journey is a marathon, not a
Yeah,
sprint,
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
right?
Mhm.
So Julie gave us the formula here, right? If you're looking at starting over in a way, causing there to be an adjustment in a way that's real, she said, number one, be aware. Okay. So take some time right now and just think, be aware. Start with that self-awareness. Listen to
Mhm.
yourself. How do you normally speak? What are the habits that you have when it comes to your vocabulary, right? And then she said to replace. So as you are aware and you come to your own clarity with the words, the vocabulary that you're using that's really not working, that is weak, go ahead and replace it, right? She said, try saying thank you, right? Thank you for your patience.
Mhm.
Don't apologize unnecessarily. And it's going to take practice, right? I love that. It will take practice. Rome was
Mhm.
not built in a day, right? In order for us something to become a habit, we have to do it over and over
Mhm.
and over again. So be aware, replace, and practice. This is a great formula for those who are listening here in our community where you are ready right now. And matter of fact, I want to invite you to commit. I want to invite you right now to write, be aware, replace practice. This is the formula, and commit to making the change, to just doing it because you can and because you know that this will help you to grow more confident in your language and in
Mhm.
how you communicate with your leadership community. Julie, this was such a rich and powerful episode. I absolutely would love to invite you back again in the future because I feel like right now we just
Yes.
barely skim the surface, right?
Yes.
And this is one of those conversations, again, that as leaders, we don't really talk about a lot, but the
Mhm.
impact is so deep. I know that there are those who want to, one, engage with you, tap into the resources, maybe, get into some of the coaching that you have. So if somebody wants to engage with you, reach out to you, what is the best way for them to do so?
Well, definitely you can go visit my site, julieholunga.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I have a monthly action-oriented newsletter that is a quick read. My goal is always less than 4 minutes, but it gives you some tips, but helps you, as we talked about today, raise that awareness and give you the tools. So when you realize, oh, I'm using weak language, what can I do about it? And I also would love to offer your listeners a glossary that I have that's really practical in nature. The words to take out of your vocabulary, the ones to replace it with, how to write strong, impactful, influential emails, which I would be happy to share with your audience.
And we would love that. So, to the audience, we will have her link and we will get you everything that you need to stay in contact with Julie. And to those in our community, I want to invite you to support her as well. So, please, please, please engage with her on LinkedIn, listen, like, love, share, follow, subscribe, all the above, so that we can continue to grow as a more resilient, transformational leadership community. Julie, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure, and we look forward to seeing you back with us again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrienne.
All right. Well, there you have it. I want you to remember that leadership isn't about saying more, it's about saying what matters with intention, integrity, and impact. Let's stop playing small with our words. Today, you were reminded of a few things, right? Just to recap one more time, we were reminded to be aware, to replace, and to practice. And if this episode challenged you, inspired you, or gave you a moment of clarity, then I want you to do me a favor. Go ahead and share with another bold leader. Tag me with your favorite takeaway. Until next time, stay strong, lead well, don't just communicate, but go ahead and transform.